welcome to the Music Lens podcast with me, Alex Allegra.
And Katie Fee.
I feel like I still look bummy, but it's okay.
It'll be alright. Yeah, before we get into our actual topic of the day, I have things to say.
Okay.
I went to Eric Church last night at the Pinnacle, and he's doing 2 shows there, so May 23rd and 24th for whenever you listen to this. And it's basically, when they announced the shows, they specified that this is like a one-of-a-kind thing, like first time ever performing this new album. And then
was it just a new album?
It said also with some of his like biggest hits or whatever. Which on the way there, I did go back to the post to like see, because I'm like, I can't remember if this is literally the album or if there's other stuff happening, because it's only 8 songs. So yeah. I was like, I feel like he has to, but like I feel like he should do more.
Got out early then too,
yeah.
Because I remember,
even though he started late, but it's fine. Well, there was stuff happening before he got on stage that is like planned stuff. I think it could have been cut down a little bit on the time of it, but maybe it was stalling if they weren't quite ready.
Did he have openers?
No openers. But it was like, so it's Evangeline versus the Machine, which we talked about the album on a different episode, and the aesthetics and everything that they have visual wise for this album is like, has these like people in hazmat suits with these like gas masks, and there's like M's for Machine, and then the logo could be an E, could be an M, depending on if it's on its side or whatever. So it covers both Evangeline and Machine, which I think is cool. So lights went down, and then these people come out in the hazmat suits and go up to like cameras on the sides of the stage, and they both have M's on the cameras. It looks like 1960s style cameras, honestly, like for you see like in Hairspray, like that big type of camera. Also, I think they're filming because there's just cameras everywhere throughout, and I'm like, it's a small venue, there's no screens to see, so it's not for that, so something's filmed, I guess. So they go out, I think it was like a whole song played, and then more of them come out, and they're like on the balcony, like spread evenly throughout, just like standing. It's like, this is kind of cool, but also I don't know why we need like an entire song for this, because that kind of just like adds to the time where everyone's like, okay, like where are you? But then eventually, like it's like I talked about for the album, he did orchestra, choir, horn section type of thing. So live he did have more of a choir versus just like a couple background singers, and then he had a string quartet, and then like 4 or 5 different horns.
Oh wow.
So lots of people. And then his actual band.
Is it the same show for both days?
I think so. Okay. It might change a little bit for like the hits part of it, because he did go off script a little bit. So that probably will happen again tonight, but he played the album first. So 8 songs, didn't talk to the audience at all, just like played through, because it's such an album where it's like you kind of have to listen to it in its entirety to really like enjoy it.
Okay. Because
the transitions go so smoothly from one song to the next, and some of them have kind of lengthy transitions of like the melody's over, but there's like a long I think it was saxophone solo at the end of one of the songs and stuff. And I don't know, I loved it because just like the creativity behind it and the musicianship, and just growing up in choir and orchestra, and not in band, but just being with band people too, just like that whole music department community. It was like, okay, this kind of makes me think of back in that day, and appreciating more of the classical sides of things. There are people in the crowd that did not appreciate it, and I was getting frustrated.
Well, couple things. One, especially for having 2 nights in a row, I feel like that's a little ambitious just to do the same show when it's like not when it's just like a concept kind of thing. It feels like more of like a one night only type thing.
I think it's just because it's a small venue and
and that would
demand
be
wise
my
sell out both of them.
Is maybe he should have done it at his bar because it's all seated, and maybe it was more of like a seated experience versus like a pit kind of. Still, it's like a standing room only at the Pinnacle.
Yeah,
but it's not that small. It's pretty big. I mean,
it's not necessarily. I don't feel like it's like a mellow album at all, where you would have to be like sitting down. Like you can still like kind of move about and stuff.
I also feel like people see, Eric Church is playing, and that's it. They don't see necessarily. They don't
pay attention to the rest.
Oh, it's a specific thing necessarily. Like
I think that's the problem because like the guys behind me were complaining of like, okay, when's the real show starting and stuff. I'm like, okay, that's disrespectful to say it that way. Like they just wanted the hits. And like, you signed up for a one-of-a-kind show that is specifically for the new album. If you want a show that's just the hits, this is not it. Wait till the tour, because I don't think he'll probably play songs from the album on the tour, but it won't be in the same like way where it's like literally just nonstop all 8 songs with nothing else going on. So
and that's what I'm saying, and like too, especially when the album's so fresh, like people aren't singing along and doing all
people were
like,
a little
the
bit
antics that like a normal like hit album kind of would do. So that's all too. I was just thinking,
like, I know people knew for the ones that were out before the album, for sure people were singing along, and then a little bit of other ones they caught on to already prior to the show. But then there's just like other people who like it got down to the last 2 songs and I'm hearing him like, okay, this one's Rocket's White Lincoln. Like they had looked up the track list to count down to when it's over. I'm like, hey, let's not do that.
Again, I just think people, especially because of who he is, it's just like they see Eric Church and they're like, oh, that'll be a good show and I'll know all the songs. And then like when you get something different, it's just not what you expected. And I mean, there are plenty,
they gave plenty of warning though that this is not gonna be just your typical hits show. Like that's gonna come later. He's gonna play stuff, but like I don't know. I feel like just pay attention to what kind of show you're going to and not be disrespectful about like, hey, hurry up and play stuff I want to hear.
Yeah.
Because they worked hard on it. Like he said, they've been working on it for a long time, putting that show together, which obviously like any show like that, it's going to take a lot of effort to form everything. And there's so many people on stage. So learning all the parts and stuff. Also the background singers were the choir was just fun to watch individually too. They're so into it with like their dance moves and stuff. And there's like a choir part in one of the songs that's kind of just like, I guess, jumping intervals back and forth. And the one girl's like, it almost looks like juggling, but she's like singing with her hands moving. I'm like, okay. But yeah, they're just like very into the music and having the best time on stage. So that was fun to see as well. And Joanna was with him, who I don't know if she's joining this tour or not, because she had announced like leaving the band a while ago to pursue more of her stuff, because she definitely has her own fan base that people have just kind of like built a fan base around her too, even in his band. So that was cool to have her back. And at the end of the show, like everyone left stage except Eric. He like, I guess was kind of like letting everyone leave first. And then he's like, all right. And went back up and he's like, this is unplanned. He seemed like a stressed voice when he said it. Like, I don't know what I'm about to do. But I'm like, you've done this enough times, dude, but okay. And then he's like, is Joanna still here? I need you. And it's like, what are we gonna do? And she's like, I reckon the one everyone's wanting. And because she always does like Jesus does with him, and like gets to sing the second verse on her own and stuff. So that's kind of become kind of her song in the set list. So they did that to close the night. So that was nice, of just the two of them. But yeah, they went off script a couple times where he was like, we'll see if the band remembers this song, and we'll see if you remember it. And so they kind of had some last minute additions to the like older catalog stuff. But he did at least one from each album, so it was like he covered everything a little bit, even though obviously it was meant to be about the new album. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like every single time he does something different, there's people that complain, and I'm like, you should know by now with this guy that he's going to continue to push boundaries and try different things.
I think it's the fact that not everybody is as close of a fan as you are, and that's why they're just like, oh, I know who Eric Church is.
Yeah.
Or like they're in town and they're like, oh, Eric Church is playing while I'm in town. Like,
yeah, it's fine.
Might as well go check that out. Like, that's it. So
yeah, I don't know. I just get frustrated. So I just felt like I needed to rant about that and share about the show just because it was so unique.
Yeah.
So,
which is fine. Topic, Katie?
But today's topic is back in, I think I wrote it down, episode 47. We did the like how labels pay artists and talked more in depth about artist advances and stuff. And then we mentioned wanting to do an episode on like just the overall like record contracts, and so we're gonna do that today and talk about contracts and just kind of some of the terminology that is good to be knowledgeable about if you are in a situation where you're looking at signing a deal. So originally when I wanted to like research this stuff, I pulled out a textbook from Belmont, and this is a pretty well-known book in the music industry because like people even outside of Belmont, I didn't know my sound was on, let's turn that off, know this book, I think, even if you didn't go to college for music business. But it's All You Need to Know About the Music Business by Donald S. Passman. But then I realized that particular copy that I have is the 9th edition from 2015. So it's 10 years old. Some of it I felt like was helpful, but then I just was like, we're gonna Google stuff to have more accurate or like up-to-date information. But there is a revised and updated version from 2023 that's published. It's the 11th edition. I'm wondering, because I noticed a pattern. COVID broke this pattern up, but it's generally like every 3 years he updates it. So I wonder if there will be a new edition next year. So I might like wait till next year and see, and then potentially buy it, because I think it is a good book for knowing or like learning stuff and being in the know. Yeah, the newest version has like why artists have more power than ever in history, AI, TikTok, and the metaverse's impact on music, and talking about like sales of artists' catalogs and updated numbers and trends in all aspects of the business. So a lot of updates that I was like, ooh, this is important stuff that I kind of want to read into. So I'm gonna hold out and see if there's even more updates. But that if you're interested and don't want to wait, that is a book that is good to get if you want to if you want to look that up and potentially get that. But yeah, so just kind of going into it, definition wise, recording contracts are the legally binding agreements enabling record companies to exploit an artist's performance in a sound recording in return for royalty payments. And just go back and listen to our episode 47 to learn like how the labels pay artists and learn more about the advances and the royalties part of it, because we already got into it, so we don't really need to repeat that information. Which is, I feel like that's like the biggest part of it, so that's probably in part why I don't have as much information as I thought I would. Details about like there's different types of deals with record labels. And so there's like the classic full label deal, which is where an artist assigns the copyright to the label, at least for a time. In exchange, the label commits to investing in the artist. So that's where the advance comes in, where they're like paying the artist in advance to cover recording and marketing costs. And in return, the label is providing services for artist development, distribution, PR, and marketing. And they will share the agreed upon percentage of recorded music earnings with the artist. After the advances are recouped and all that. So basically with that one, it's just like everything is all in one with the label of they're helping you with all aspects of your career pretty much. But then there's also like a label services deal where the artist is entering an agreement with a business that's providing a lot of the services a label would in return for a fee or commission while retaining ownership of your copyright. And then that one's like a more limited version, basically.
Are those like what the more like the like boutique? It's kind of like more popular. I see at least an R level lately of like the, like boutique like.
It's definitely more smaller.
Of, like, oh well, we're a Universal brand, but like it's
like under the umbrella of Universal, but they're like a smaller one. I think that would be where you would probably find a label services deal. And so it's just like more limited in what they're actually providing you, but you're also retaining your ownership of your copyright, which is nice. But they're also less likely to provide an advance or cover upfront recording costs. So that would still fall on the artist to figure out how to pay for that stuff. So that one's more limited.
Make you pay for their services, or you just like pay them out of like what you earn on it?
Provides a lot of services label would in return for a fee or commission.
Okay,
so it could be just a flat fee, or it could be like a commission off of what you make.
Yeah.
So I guess it just depends on what you negotiate.
I feel like I've seen a lot of like you pay for it, and it's just like that's just the tough part of using those kinds of things is you're not necessarily guaranteed because they're not investing their own money in you. You don't necessarily like, have a expectation.
Don't have motivation to help as much.
You're also paying out of pocket, and especially with it being tied to bigger brands, they could use that an advantage of like, well, you're getting a Universal level distribution, but you have to pay for that then because you're not signed with them. So
the next one's a distribution deal. So that one is generally limited to the digital and or physical distribution of artist catalog to online streaming and download platforms, and online or offline physical stores. Some distributors have like limited marketing services that they'll do as well, but mainly it's just about getting the music out to these different places for you. And they'll either charge a flat fee per distributed sound recording and pass on 100% of the income generated, or they'll take a commission on the earnings. And some may even provide their distribution services free of charge and try to upsell premium services. And in this one, the artist keeps full ownership of the copyright. So I guess the biggest example of this that would be like relatable to independent artists is literally like when you upload stuff to DistroKid or TuneCore or anything like that. Which we have a
whole episode about as well.
Yes. That is considered a distribution deal. So if you are independently releasing music and you're using a distributor like DistroKid, I just keep using that one because that's who I use. Technically, you do have a deal of some form. Just for the distribution aspect of the music. And we talked
about how I think they've gotten a lot better at offering more than just, because I really feel like even like 10 years ago when we started upload, or like more like 5, 6, 7, something like years ago when we started uploading music, Katie and I, it was like really just to get your song out to as many platforms as possible. And even that I've seen from like the first single I did to now, and I just how like it's like 3 rows of like like little icons of which places there, whereas like the first one had like 1 row of like eligible things to distribute your music to. And now there's like 100 of platforms, and I feel like they've definitely gotten a lot better at like creating, like when the DistroKid did stuff with like YouTube artist platforms, and you know, you can now like master, and we talked about all this stuff, but like just offering more than literally just.
I think there's also like if you have like the top tier one, you get a what's the word, like a contact list of different things you can reach out to for playlisting and stuff.
Oh yeah, well, whatever one I have, I know you can, but you only have like a limited number per day that you can use.
But yeah, that's the distribution deal. And then the next one is the 360 deal, which I feel like we might have talked about a little bit with the advances.
Yeah, because these are like the most popular.
Because
for
this
so
one,
many things nowadays.
yeah, it's very similar to the full label deal, but it goes a step further in that it's like, in addition to taking a cut of the recorded music earnings, the label's also taking a cut of other revenues, such as like the live music and the merchandise and brand partnership earnings. And I guess the good thing about this is that it's going to help you recoup those advances faster, so that way you can start actually getting those royalties.
Right.
But on the other side of it, it's like, if they're taking from those as well, then you're really not making much until you get those advances recouped. So it's kind of cutting from your initial income, and cutting down on that. But the last one is catalog acquisition. So that kind of deal is just basically like selling your catalog.
You see it a lot with like things that are out of contract, like Michael Jackson or
it's in the news
Paul
a lot.
McCartney or Taylor Swift when she sold all of hers.
Yes,
like this
yeah.
is what that is. It's selling your catalog.
Yeah, if you keep up with news in the music industry, you've heard of catalog acquisition just because they happen so often. But it's basically, I guess it's become more popular recently, and it's the company acquires the catalog, and the performer typically relinquishes any future royalties, and all income goes to that acquiring company. And this can happen for someone's publishing catalog, recording catalog, or both. And like you said, my example I listed was like when Taylor wanted to buy her masters back, it was because they, that's just a thing that you can do, is like sell your catalog of stuff. And
the main reason is because like you could own a catalog like Michael Jackson's and make so much money off of it, because you get to control what ads it's being put in, and then you get the revenue off of that, and the artist no longer does because they're out of contract and everything, so they're not well, I mean, they get if they have songwriters and stuff like that, they get royalties per like plays and stuff, but like you're getting the big chunk of that revenue at that point, because it's just you're getting that money for it being placed in things. So
yeah. Another recent one was Big Loud recently sold just a minority stake, but they sold a stake in Morgan Wallen's catalog.
Okay.
So that's interesting, because I'm pretty sure he's like still with them. So I don't know if I've heard that before for like current artists, of like you're still on that label and they're selling away part of your catalog.
I wonder if that's a like strategic behind the scenes like investor type thing, like maybe they're trying to create more revenue in their own company, and it's a way to keep investors in it like up to date and included. And
it's slowly loading. I'm like, I think the article actually like gave the name of the. Can you actually give me the words, please? Thank you. Sold it to Chord Music Partners.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that company is. I'm not familiar with them.
I've heard of it, but I couldn't tell you what it is off the top of my head.
Okay. Founded in 2021, investment company, or by investment companies. Built a portfolio, includes music from The Weeknd, Ryan Tedder, and John Legend. And Universal acquired percentage of Chord last year, so it's kind of must be a public company.
It must just be like an investing company. So that's what makes me think that like Big Loud has some money issues essentially, and they're trying to get investors.
Maybe.
And that's what you do. You offer up your biggest artist, and they can take some stock in it. So there you go.
But yeah, that's all the different types of deals. And then I had basically just like going through some of the basic contract terms, and then I have a couple more complicated ones that I thought were important to list as well. But when you look at the contract, if you're given a contract, obviously you want to probably get a lawyer. Yes. Ideally get a lawyer to help you with it, but it's good for you to also understand it yourself too.
Well, and that's what a good lawyer is going to do. They're going to break it down for you and say like, this is exactly what you're signing, period.
But you're understanding what you're getting yourself into, and like making sure that you're not locked in for life and things like that. So The first one is territory, which is pretty simple. It's just where the deal applies. It could be just the United States. It could be worldwide. It could be US plus Europe or something like that. It really just kind of depends. But territory is just laying out where it applies. Exclusivity. In a classic deal, the contract may state the artist is bound exclusively to the label until a minimum commitment by the artist is fulfilled. So, for example, it could say like until 3 albums is completed, then you are free to be out of your deal. But you have to complete those albums and have them commercially viable or whatever. Meet all those standards. And then also with exclusivity, if you see like an artist that is featured on another artist's track, it's like you have to get permission for that, especially if it's like, I'm trying to think of like Ian and Lainey. Ian Munsick is on Warner and Lainey Wilson is on BBR, so they're separate labels, so they would have had to get permission granted for that collab. So if they're not on the same label, you have to get that approved.
I wonder if that's also, well, I mean, I know labels like to cross promote their own selves anyways, and that's why they normally do collaborations on the same album. But I wonder if it's also just a less paperwork hassle and they're like, this is easy, just do it.
I don't know if that also has to do with like why a lot of artists on the same label will be like touring together of okay, who do we want to open for Chris Stapleton this year? Like, okay, let's get people on the same label so that way we don't have to have as much paperwork with it, especially if it's, I don't know what his deal is, but like anyone with 360 deals, since the revenue's coming from touring and not just the recorded music, like that might make it easier.
Like separate, like the only thing I can think of is if there's like a Coke versus Pepsi per like labels things, like maybe Warner only deals with Coke products and like maybe Universal only deals with Pepsi products. I don't know if that's ever a thing,
don't know,
but like
I feel like that's more like an individual artist thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. That's why I was like, that's probably not a good example, but I wonder if that's a thing.
The next one is royalty rate. So agreeing to a percentage of income the label shares with the artist, which I think we kind of got into that with Advances probably. So I didn't really put too much in there with that. Advances is the next thing on here. Again, go to episode 47 for that.
Katie knows.
I looked it up because I was like, I need to be able to send people to the right place. And then term is the term for how long the deal lasts. The duration, yes. And typically it will have like an initial fixed period. So for an example, like 12 months or 1 album, and then it will be followed by what's called option periods. And so, I guess I'll skip down and then I'll come back. Options are like, it's giving the label first refusal on a release or releases after the first one's delivered out into the world. So after that initial 12 months or the first album, then the label gets to decide if they want to pick up an option, which means extending the contract. And so with that, you want to like make sure that the contract is specific about how many options are allowed. So you're not just stuck in it forever. You don't want to have like, no like specificity in the contract of just like any amount of options. Like you want to nail down like, okay, you get this initial 1 album period and then an additional, say 3 options for an additional 3 albums total. Kind of thing. I guess my example that I had with the term, I couldn't find, it says that Taylor Swift's deal with Big Machine was for 13 years, and I couldn't find details with that specified anything, but I would have to assume it was like an initial period and then options, and that it wasn't that she signed a whole 13-year deal up front. I thought
her deal was something like 5 albums plus 2 optionals or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's why people were like, that's ridiculous, because normally it's like 3 plus 2.
Yeah. Or even just, well, nowadays it gets to be more like just 1 because I feel like labels are kind of not, they don't have as much faith necessarily up front with artists of like, they're more careful with their money, which is fair, of like, we only want to invest in one album to see how it goes, instead of be like, okay, we're committed to multiple albums when we don't even have any proof of stuff.
Seeing the whole like TikTok trend of like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we'll invest in you for one album because you're on the rise right now, but now that there's like 5 other people like you, like we don't need you anymore, we'll get like the next big thing kind of a thing.
Also, side note, when I was like looking up trying to figure out the contract for Taylor of length and all that, her attorney is Donald Passman, who wrote the book that I mentioned. I was like, hey, wait a minute, I heard that name before. So I just thought that was funny. Yeah, the book, as of the 2015 copy, had said that majors often insist on a total of 5 to 6 albums over the course of the deal. So I guess maybe because that was the 2015 version of the book and Taylor signed in like 2005, like maybe it is possible that they did that, since she did 6 albums there. But then it says that like indies often agree to 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, odds are it could be like one album and then 5 options or something like that. And yeah, that's kind of all the basic ones. And then I just had a couple more, I feel like they're more advanced contract terms. Keyman provision is one. And so that's basically when you sign to a label, if it's like, say, the A&R guy, he signs you and then he leaves the label, the provision allows you to leave the label as well, because if the person who signed you because they believed in you leaves, then like you might get shelved. Like people aren't really gonna be invested in you as much as that person who has now left and isn't part of your contract. So it's important to make it so that way you can leave, because why would you want to stick with this label and these people who don't necessarily believe in you as much as the person who signed you?
Because you could be like at the top of your game, and if that one person that didn't believe in you since day one, like for some reason goes and finds something else, like you could really get the short end of a stick, because they have their people that they want to invest in instead, and they're going to be fighting for the people that they brought in to get that job. So
and then the other one, which is kind of complicated, is the controlled composition clause. And so especially today, like most artists are also songwriters, this clause is for those who are songwriters too. It's putting a limit on how much the company has to pay for each controlled composition. And so controlled composition or controlled comp, that's a song that's written, owned, or controlled by the artist in part, or in whole or in part. So more broadly, any song in which the artist has income or other interest, any song where the artist gets a piece of its earnings, basically. So since with those like 2 different copyrights, the artist is getting money as a songwriter as well, then that's like the controlled comp. And it's limiting the mechanical royalties, because this money typically doesn't go towards recouping advances. So this money's going out before the label breaks even. So that's why they're trying to limit it, because they want to get as much money out of you as possible, basically. And at the time of this book, so I don't know if it's changed, because I feel like with the Music Modernization Act, there might be some changes. I can't remember, but it was basically saying like the rate per song is like 75% of the statutory rate usually for the controlled comp version. And I just remember Brad Paisley coming to Belmont and speaking about this clause. So that's why it's like stuck in my brain. And so he learned this at Belmont, and he basically was telling us that when he negotiated his record contract, he was like, take this clause out, it's not fair. And because he knew what the clause was, and they were so surprised that like, oh, you know what this is, like, okay, yeah, we'll take it out because you understand what you're talking about. So I guess that's interesting to think of labels, if you didn't know about that and didn't understand how that's not really a fair clause to have from the artist side of it, like they'll just kind of take advantage of you in that way. So it's good to know what you're talking about so you can properly advocate for yourself. Yeah. So I just thought that was
Or getting
funny.
A good lawyer that wants to advocate for you.
That too. Yeah. Well, you want to advocate for yourself and have the lawyer do it as well. But like,
But
the lawyer you could speak through the lawyer, but
you, like especially if you're so green to it all.
But yeah, that's what I had. It's okay. We'll have a little shorter episode this time. Yeah. We've had some long ones, so balance out, I guess. But yeah, that's
long
kind
ones
of
where we talk about nothing but our lives.
It's fine. It's okay. But yeah, that's just the basics that are good to know if you are in a situation where you're looking at a contract.
Now you can negotiate a little bit more.
And this is
brainy.
This is like record label, but a lot of the publishing contracts are going to be like similar-ish terms as far as like territory and term and all that stuff. So it kind of applies to both. And maybe if there's enough research behind it, we could do a publishing episode, but I'm not sure if it's different enough to warrant it. So we'll see. But yeah, if you have any questions or you have some insight that you think would be helpful for us to share with everyone, you can send that to themusiclenspodcast@gmail.com, or you could comment on our YouTube or comment on our socials. Go ahead and follow us at the Music Lens Podcast on all our socials to keep up with what we're doing and our episodes. Also rate and review this episode and share it, because that helps the algorithm send it out to more people. Very helpful. And you could follow Alex at Alex Allegra Music. I don't know why I struggled to say that. And me at Katie Fee Music, and you can listen to Alex's song Ego, and you could pre-save my song Midnight Margaritas. And I am wearing the shirt because we recorded this the same day as last week. Shh. Anyways, we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.